So Unit 1, Chemistry. Started out, we talked about the history of the atom, kind of what the atom was originally thought to be, how matter was thought to be, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so that was lesson 1. It was history and structure of the atom. Okay, in the written response, so some of the things you'll be asked to do in terms of the history of the atom. There will certainly be some multiple choice questions, okay? And those could be things like, here's a picture of what one person thought the atom looked like. Which person's model is this? And, and you could have, it could be Dalton's solid sphere, or it could be, Thomson's plum pudding, or Rutherford's, or Bohr's, or whoever, okay? So make sure you know what the atoms, what those models looked like. But even more important than that, there is a written response item where you will be asked to draw what an atom looks like according to the currently accepted model. Okay, that would include things like how many protons, how many neutrons, how many electrons, where are they, what is their arrangement. All right, so that is one of the things that you'll be asked to do in the written response. Sorry, on that note, there is a multiple choice section and there's a written response section to your exam. The written response is the bigger part of the exam. Okay. All right. So yes, you will be asked to draw a diagram. Okay, and talked about here number of particles, location of particles. Okay, things like that. And I did say that the day we went over that as well, that would be one of the things I would ask you to do. Okay, and then certainly there will be some multiple choice stuff. Okay, in regards to whose model, who came up with what. Okay, that kind of thing. Now, the next day we talked about naming compounds. You have to be able to do that. There's just no two ways about it. You have to know how to name compounds. You have to know how to write their formulas. Because yeah, there'll be a couple of multiple choice questions like, what's the proper formula for calcium nitrate? Okay, and then there'll be 4 options. But more importantly than that, you won't be able to write chemical reactions, balance them correctly, or even do mole equation calculations if you can't write the formulas for these compounds. Okay, so naming compounds and writing their formulas is an absolutely crucial fundamental skill that you are going to need to demonstrate. Okay. All right, then we talked about properties of compounds, and we did a lab on properties of compounds. Okay, which means it's pretty important. All right, so lesson 4, properties of compounds. In that lesson, we talked about the properties of ionic compounds. Okay, some of those being that ionic compounds are generally quite soluble, that ionic compounds are crystalline solids at room temperature, that when you dissolve an ionic compound in water, its solution will do what? Conduct electricity. Okay, so it would be very easy for me to give you a multiple choice question that sets up just like the analysis from your lab. All right, I could say you have an unknown compound with the following properties. Okay, it is a green crystalline solid that is highly soluble in water, whose solution conducts electricity and has a pH of 6. It could be A, copper 2 sulfate, B, ammonium nitrate, C, nickel 2 chloride, or D, iron oxide. Okay, you'd have to pick C, it's nickel, okay, because nickel is green. All right, everyone with me on that? So it'd be easy to have a question like that, but you'll have to review the stuff that's in lesson 4 and in your lab, okay, on properties of compounds. That's the way I'm going to test that kind of stuff. Okay. So like I said, lab, and it's multiple choice. So anywhere we see MC, that means it's going to be in the multiple choice. Anywhere we see WR, that's going to be written response. Okay, then we talked about solubility. And there's a lot of terminology. Okay, that means vocabulary to do with solubility. So knowing what a solute, a solvent, a precipitate, okay, a heterogeneous and homogeneous solutions, mechanical mixtures, okay, terms like that are all going to be very important. Okay, so we need to know those because there'll be several multiple choice questions asking about terminology. There will also be some multiple choice questions asking you to use your solubility chart. Okay, so you could have which of the following compounds is not soluble, and there'd be a list, and you would have to check them. using your solubility chart to determine which one was soluble or not soluble. Okay, or I could do something like what you were supposed to do in question number 2 in the analysis of your reactions lab. Here's a chemical reaction. Which of the product is not soluble? Okay, which would be just like what you were asked to do there. Okay, so it could be something like that, okay, as a multiple choice question. Okay, solubility is also going to be part of an application question in the written response. Now, what I mean by application question is I'm going to give you a practical, real-world context. Okay, here's a problem that you could encounter in the real world. Okay, and you're going to have to use your understanding of solubility to answer that or come up with a solution to that problem. Okay, those are higher level thinking questions, right? The only way to study for those kind of questions is to know your stuff. Okay, to understand how does solubility work? How do I use my solubility chart? Okay, things like that. All I'm going to tell you is it's going to be a contextual question. I'm not going to give you an example of the context. Okay, I'm just going to give you. I'm just going to tell you it's going to be a practical situation that you're going to have to apply your knowledge to. Okay, that question will also involve your knowledge of reaction types. Okay, so it's going to combine your knowledge of reaction types and solubility. Okay, and there's only one reaction type that's going to produce precipitates that would have to do with solubility. Okay, so like I said, application question in there. Okay, solubility and reactions. Okay, so what I just told you. All right. Then we talked about in that same lesson, in that same solubility lesson, we talked about the polar nature of water. Okay, that water is a polar molecule. What does that mean? Right, the charges in a polar molecule are not distributed equally. That means the electrons hang out in one end of the atom more often than they do in the other, which makes one end of the molecule, sorry, not atom, more negative than the other. Okay, that means that those molecules can be attracted to the other end of similar molecules, and they can form hydrogen bonds if it's water. Okay, they can form hydrogen bonds. That's cohesion, adhesion. Okay, we talked about how that's used by plants to help carry water up the plant. Okay, because they can adhere to the inside of the plant or bond to each other. Okay, things like that. Everybody with me? All right, so being able to understand how that works is going to be important because there is a written response question that is going to ask you to explain how a polar molecule works, talk about some of the examples that we talked about in class. So for sure, go over that section of lesson 7 on the polar nature of water. Okay, you need to be really familiar with that so that you can explain that and how it works to me on the test. Okay, so again, explain what a polar molecule is, talk about hydrogen bonds, talk about some living things that might use it. I just said plants. Okay, also make sure that you talk about cohesion, adhesion. Okay, those two things are behaviors of water that are due to the fact that it's polar and it can have hydrogen bonds. Okay, so all of that stuff is going to be important. Okay, so hydrogen bonds lead to that. Okay, then from there we went into reactions. If there is one thing on this test that is weighted more heavily than anything else, and I mean significantly, it is reactions. Okay, probably close to 40% of the test, so almost half, is about reactions in terms of marks. Okay, it's huge. So you've got to be able to identify reaction types. You've got to be able to write them out in formula form, write them out in word form, balance them, predict them, okay, all of that stuff, okay? Those are crucial reaction skills. Basically, everything you were asked to do on that assignment you handed in to me this morning, okay, that's all going to be on there. I will have some questions where here it is, write it out in words. Here it is in words, write it out in formula form, balance it, identify the type. Here's 2 more. here's only the reactants. Predict the products, balance the reaction. Okay, exactly the same stuff you were asked to do in class. Okay, but there's a lot of marks on reactions in both the multiple choice and the written response. Okay, so the first like 7 marks in the written response is here's 7 reactions, balance them. And that's it, just balance them. Okay. Then there's write it out in words, identify the type, balance, predict the products, just like I said here a minute ago. Okay. Could there be some stuff kind of related to your reactions lab? Yes, there could be some multiple choice questions a little bit about that, because in the reactions lab, we looked at what are the signs of a chemical reaction. Okay. Well, why does a precipitate form sometimes? Why does a gas get evolved sometimes? Okay, what does this tell us about what's going on? Okay, and that goes back to Dalton's atomic theory, which by the way is also on the test. Okay, you know, that atoms can be separated, they can be joined, they can be rearranged, they're only whole number ratios. Okay, all of that kind of stuff is all going to be on there. Okay, and I would say that probably the more times you can work in a written response question, the more times you can work in something from Dalton, the better. Okay, because that says, I'm not only answering this question, I'm telling you, Mr. Coderre, that I know how it ties into this thing, which is the basis for all chemistry. Okay, that's higher level thinking. And I don't mean just write his atomic theory on every single question. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay, like it actually has to mean something. Okay. All right, and then mole equation. That's what we've been working on the last couple days. How many ways are there for me to ask a mole equation question? 4. How many are there going to be on the test? Well, for sure 3. But you don't know which 3. So you better know how to do all 4. Okay? Maybe all 4. I haven't decided yet. Just wait outside, I'll come get you in a minute. Okay, now I remember what that's supposed to be. Doesn't make sense the way I wrote it, but okay. So for your exam, okay. So the mole equation, that's going to be in the written response. Okay, so there's a multiple choice section and there's a written response section. The multiple choice is a zip grade form. Have you guys ever used a zip grade form before? Okay, good. All right, so the way zip grade works, okay, is you fill in the multiple choice section. I scan it with my phone. My phone tells me how many of them you got right, how many you got them wrong. It's absolutely 100% infallible, except when people do this. Should you do the multiple choice in pencil? Do the multiple choice in pencil. If you don't, know that I do not double check what my phone tells me. If you do it in pen, this is what will eventually happen to you. You'll go, oh yeah, that answer's totally B. Oh, wait, no, it's not. No, that's not right. It's totally D. Oh, no, it isn't. No, it's... You laugh, but people do that. They write this one and then they draw an arrow. Do you know what my phone says when I scan that? It's wrong. And my phone's right. It is wrong. Okay? There are not 3 correct answers for that one. Okay? Use pencil. My other recommendation would be that when you're using pencil, just do this. Then when you're checking it over and you're sure of your answer, you can fill it in darker. Okay? But this way, at least if you do decide this isn't the answer, you only have to erase that little dot as opposed to the whole thing. Okay? And it's way more reliable that way. Okay? Just good test taking strategy. All right. Okay, I'm going to talk about the test here in just a second. Okay. So your unit exam has 33 multiple choice questions. Okay. Those multiple choice questions cover terminology, basic facts, okay, reaction types, simple skill demonstration, stuff like that. Okay. There should be fairly straightforward. Like you should be able to do 2 or 3 of them per minute. Okay, realistically. They're not going to require you to do a page of calculations to answer one multiple choice question, okay? So like I said, they're going to be talking about things like, your knowledge of physical versus chemical changes, physical versus chemical properties, a little bit of stuff on scientific method, okay, like being able to, if I describe an experiment, that you could identify what the manipulated variable was or the responding variable was, okay, so a little bit of stuff on that. Properties of compounds, so molecular versus ionic stuff. Again, we talked about solubility terminology was going to be in there. Some stuff about structure of the atom. Okay, we said that would be in there as well. So being able to determine, how many protons there are, or how many neutrons there are in an atom. Okay, it's going to be something you're going to have to do. Properties, polar nature of water. There's a couple of questions about that. There's lots of naming and formula questions. A couple of things on the structure and model history of the atom. Okay. And yeah, so that's the stuff that's in the multiple choice. Okay, 33 multiple choice questions. Now, there are 6 written response questions, but many of them have like A, B, C, D. Okay, so they have different parts. There's 51 marks in the written. All right, so the whole test is out of 84. Now, question number 1 in the written response is 7 reactions that need to be balanced. Okay, so you got to be able to balance reactions. Second question is reactions again, but this time it's I give you the reactants, you identify the reaction type, predict the products, balance the reaction. Okay, so you got to do that. Each one of those will be out of 4 marks. So that's 16 marks on question number 2 and another 7 for question number 1. Like we're already up, okay, to 23 marks, and it's only the first 2 questions, and the whole test is only out of 84. Okay, so it's already a quarter of the test. Okay, then I said you're also going to have to draw a picture of an atom. Okay, current structure. Okay, our currently accepted model, right number of particles. Okay, that kind of stuff. And I think I'm going to go with all 4 mole problems. Okay, right now I have one of them highlighted in gray, like I'm going to take it out, but I think I'm going to stick with having all 4 in there. So you need to know how to do all 4 mole calculations because all 4 will be on your test. Okay, and there will be 14 marks there. Okay, so it'll be like some of them are out of 3 and some of them are out of 4. Then we got our polar nature of water written response question that I told you would be on there. And then there is our application, our context question that I told you would involve reactions as well as solubility. Okay, real world situation, problem solving, applying your knowledge. Okay. So that is it. That's what's on there. Okay, give you a pretty good idea of what kind of things you need to study here coming up for Monday. All right, questions on that? Okay, so I gave you the review package. I put it on Google Classroom the other day. Okay, so this is what you guys got there. You also got a key for this. All right, so there's this file here that's just the question, and then there's also the key. Right, so the first page here is basically just recommended activities for you to do to help you review important material. So there's describe the atomic models we covered in class, because we know there's a couple of multiple choice questions where I show you a picture of somebody's model, or I ask you something about what somebody discovered or something like that. Okay. Then question number 2 says describe an ionic compound, including how it's bonded together. So properties of compounds. Okay. Same thing for molecular. So we need to know that stuff. Question 4 is just some naming practice. Again, on the key, the answers are in there. Okay, number 5, same thing, but the other way. So I give you the names, you write the formulas. Okay, number 6, make up an example of each of the 5 reaction types. All right, so make up a synthesis reaction, make up a decomposition reaction, whatever. Okay. Number 7, okay, I give you the reactants, you got to predict the products, balance the reaction again on the key. The answers are there. Write a paragraph that summarizes the law of conservation of mass and why it's important. So we only talked about this kind of very briefly, but that's why we balance reactions, is to make sure we have the same number of atoms on both sides, because matter can't be created or destroyed. So just something like that. Okay. List the points of Dalton's atomic theory. That's an easy multiple choice question, right? Like, which of the following is not part of Dalton's atomic theory? Okay, because I mean, it does have 4 points after all. And then number 10, some mole equation calculations. Okay, I've got the answers on the key as well. Okay, explain why the properties of water make it so vital to all life on Earth. Give examples of how organisms use these properties to survive. This is very similar to what you'll be asked on the exam about the polar nature of water. Okay. If you had a solution with a substance dissolved in it that you wanted to remove, explain how you could use a chemical reaction, okay, and probably what type of chemical reaction, combined with your solubility table to get that substance out. For example, if you had lead nitrate dissolved in water and wanted to remove the lead, how could adding another substance get the lead out? Okay, what kind of a reaction could happen? Okay, what would be a way that would make it so I could get rid of the lead and actually separate it? And then you have the practice test here. Okay, all of these questions were at least at one point on a unit exam made by me. Right, I don't use any of these ones anymore, right? But they are like the kinds of things I'm going to ask. Guys, basically, my tests are all built from the same skeleton. Okay, that is, they all have the same bones. All I do is put different skin on them every time. So instead of asking a question about which of the following is an example of a chemical change, I might ask on another test, which of the following is an example of a physical change? Or I might ask that, but have different examples for the answers. Okay, but my tests all have the same skeleton. So what you see there is very similar to what you're going to see on the test, okay, on your actual test. Again, on the key, I have highlighted the correct answers in green so you can check them. So do it first and then go and check and see which ones you got right or wrong. That'll give you a pretty good idea of what things you need to work on. All right, so I have, I think, 25 here. Okay, your test has 33 questions on it. And then these are old written response items. Okay, I told you that question number 1 was going to be all balancing. Well, there you go. Okay, question number 2 is going to be I give you reactions, you predict the products, identify the type and balance. Same with this one. Okay, draw a picture of what an atom of oxygen would be like. Well, I told you you're going to have to do that on your test too. Okay, some mole calculations. Okay, describing in your own words how the structure of the atom is changed, and you're trying to remove mercury from a solution of mercury nitrate. Describe how you could use a chemical reaction and what you know of solubility to remove it. Okay, so very similar, okay, to what you're going to get. And in fact, very similar in length as well. All right, that has 6 questions. Your test has 6 written response questions. That one has 25 multiple choice. Yours has 33. All right, so when you're doing that practice test, you might want to time yourself and just see how long it takes you. All right, you have an 85-minute class to write this test. I will allow you to start early if you want. Okay, so whatever time you get here on Monday, if you want to start, that's fine. I will give you your test and you can start. Okay, if you normally take a bus, okay, then you get a few minutes at least. The buses are usually here by 8:25. Okay, or see if you can get a ride here that'll get you here early. Okay, I will let you guys start as early as, let's say, 8:20. That'll give you an extra 15 minutes to write. I don't think you're going to need it. Okay. Given that length of that test, I think that test is easily writable in about 70 minutes, and you have 85 plus the 15. Okay. Right, because I'm not asking you to do anything you haven't done a bunch of times already. Okay. All right, questions from you guys? Anything you want me to go over, demonstrate again, talk about some more? Can I what? Orbitals. Okay, so if we're talking about orbitals, okay, an orbital is an area where an electron can be found. That's really the extent to which you need to know about orbitals. There's a whole bunch of different orbitals. They are all based on the energy of the electron. Electrons can jump from one orbital to another. You guys don't need to know any of that in Science 10. Okay, just know that an orbital is the area where there's a high probability of finding an electron. Okay, it's not an orbit, it's an area within the cloud that it can be found. Okay, what else? Yep. Not a compound, an atom. Okay, I'm going to ask you to draw an atom. But no, not a compound. Okay, what else? Okay, a couple of other suggestions for you for exam day, okay, and prior to exam day. Let's start with prior. So it's Wednesday now, your test is on Monday, right? I would say that you should be spending progressively more time each day looking at your chemistry stuff, okay? You can start out with getting your notes organized, finding stuff, okay? Kind of getting it all in order, okay? Then start reviewing certain things, practicing certain things, practice some mole equation stuff, practice some reaction stuff, okay? By Saturday, I would say Saturday, you should probably do the practice test. Okay, you should not do the practice test first. All the practice test will tell you if you do it first is that you're not ready. Okay? Be fairly well prepared, be fairly familiar with everything before you try the test. Then the test will tell you what things you still don't know, and that's what you can spend Sunday on, okay, is working on those things that you didn't get right. Right? If you get 100% on the test, well then, you know what? You can maybe take most of Sunday off then, okay? And maybe you're pretty much ready. On Monday morning, Sunday night, Monday morning, get a good night's sleep. Okay, if you have left all of your studying for this test until Sunday night, you're screwed anyway. You might as well just get a good night's sleep. Okay, cramming and pulling an all-nighter on Sunday night for Monday morning's test is not going to help you. Here's why. Here's how your brain works. Okay, your brain works like this. If you try and subject it to long hours of studying, it will remember the first few things you studied and the last few things you studied, and it will forget everything in the middle. Okay, that's just the way it works. Then you'll come in the morning and you'll go, okay, I really remember this stuff. I really remember this stuff. And you'll review it in your head right before the test. You'll put it in your short-term memory, and then you'll come in here. And by the time you get the test open, your short-term memory will blank because your short-term memory is, after all, short-term. It doesn't last very long. And then when you open up the test, how are you going to feel? Panicked. Yeah, because you're going to blank. Okay, because everything in your short-term memory is gone, you'll start to feel that panic, and your long-term memory will not be accessible. Even though all the stuff is in there, okay, you won't be able to access it because you'll be panicky. Okay, I don't want that for you. That's why I want you to start studying now and do a little bit each day. Okay, if you commit that stuff to long-term memory, then it'll be there. Okay, Monday morning, get a good breakfast. Okay, black coffee and cigarettes is not a good breakfast. Okay, have something healthy. All 4 food groups is a good idea. Okay, come in with your stomach full. Okay, your blood sugar up. Okay, all of that kind of good stuff. Your brain runs way better when it's fed and well hydrated. Okay, so make sure that you do that for it. Also, Monday morning, I see people doing this all the time, and it's the worst possible thing you can do. They're sitting outside the door and they're studying. I know that seems weird. I'm telling you, like, right before the test, the worst thing you can do is study. It's true. It's that short-term memory thing again. Okay, and I see people do it all the time, and then I see their panicked look later. All you should be doing before, like, within like the 20 minutes before the test, is whatever makes you comfortable. Talking to your friends, listening to your music, not studying. Okay, just let your body and mind get relaxed before you come in here. Okay, there's enough anxiety before a test. You don't need to add more by looking at the stuff you're supposed to know and feeling like you don't know it. Okay, so don't study within 20 minutes of the test. Okay, just relax. What do you need to bring to this test? Pencil, eraser, calculator, and your periodic table. Now, I will have to inspect your periodic table. Okay, if you've written too much stuff on it, then I'll give you a fresh one. Okay, things I would say are okay to have on there, the prefixes, okay, from 1 to 10, I would be fine with you having that on there, okay? But really, other than that, there shouldn't be anything else written on there because everything else is already on there. But if you've written stuff like, here's the naming rules for these kind of compounds, you can't have that on there, okay? So just know there shouldn't be too many notes to self on your periodic table. Okay, so pencil, calculator, okay, you got to have a calculator. You cannot use your phone. In fact, your phones will be in that blue bin there during the test, okay, because you can't have access to them. If you have a smartwatch of any kind, it will also have to be in there, okay? A regular watch is fine as long as it's not a smartwatch. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, if you have any of those kinds of technology, they have to be in the box, just like they were for final exams. Okay, they can't be on your person, so you can access them. Yeah, so just make sure you got pencil, calculator, your periodic table, okay, and then you're good. Okay, you'll have everything you need for that day. If you want to have a snack or a drink on your desk while you're doing the test, I'm fine with that. All right, a bottle of water or whatever you got to have. All right, my suggestion to you at this point would be that you should probably be working on the review package. Okay, you've still got about 40 minutes or so left in class here. Okay, let's make good use of it. If more questions come up while you're reviewing, then ask. Okay, that's what I'm here for. I want to answer your questions. So, okay, if more questions come up, just ask.